welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. Today we are doing a Q&A. I asked you guys on my Instagram what kind of questions you had about money, budgeting, investing, anything that you could think of. And I compiled a list of all of your guys' questions, so I'm gonna go through and answer those today in this video. But before we get started, make sure if you haven't already that you hit that subscribe button that is down below. Also push that notification bell, that way you get notified every single time that I upload. If you want to be a part of the Q&A next time, I will leave my Instagram and all of the rest of the social media for the Avocado Toast Budget down below. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the first question says, tips for saving when you live paycheck to paycheck and are a starving student. Well, I've been there. I know the feeling, and yes, I have tons of tips. The first tip that I would give you is to get on a zero-based budget. Those are my favorite kind of budgets, especially when you feel like you're constantly living to paycheck, or you have low income or high debt or high expenses. That is the kind of budget that you want to go for. A good example of a zero-based budget is YNAB. That is the program that I use. I will link a video up here that walks you through how to set up a YNAB budget if you want to try that, and I will put a link down in the description box for you to download YNAB. Otherwise, you can just do it on pen or paper, or there's other apps that you can use as well. But with a zero-based budget, it's just that you take every single dollar that you have on hand and you give that money a job. So you assign it toward rent or eating out or groceries, and you know pretty much exactly where your money is going. And that gives your money the most value possible, and it allows you the most control over where your money is going and what it's doing for you. And since you're a student, I really recommend that you take advantage of student discounts. This can be all different types of things. College kids get things for free. A lot of places offer college discounts, student discounts on products or services. There are also some really awesome credit cards that have great rewards specifically aimed at college students. And YNAB, which is the budget software that I was talking about, will give you a free year of YNAB if you're a college student. So that is an awesome resource to take advantage of as well. This next question goes pretty much directly into what I was just talking about, which is what is the best credit card for a first-time credit card user and specifically for a student? So personally, I haven't had a credit card as a student, but from the research that I've done and from the reviews that I have seen, the Discover student card is awesome. It gives you great cash back rewards, and it gives you bonuses based on your GPA, which, hey, free money for doing what you're already doing is awesome. I will leave a link to apply for that card down below. However, since it is your first credit card, it may or may not be harder to apply for that if you don't have any credit built up. So if you're someone who has absolutely no credit or low credit, I recommend looking into a secured credit card. A secured credit card happens usually through some sort of an online bank or a bank in person, and what you do is you put down a deposit, and then that deposit acts as your balance. So there's a security for the bank to make sure that you are not going to spend your money and then not be able to pay it back because you've already paid them that money. And it's a bonus for you because you get all of the perks of a credit card, including the fact that it helps you build up your credit. And sometimes they even have like cashback rewards or increased security on the card, and they don't have to run a credit check. Discover also has a secured card that I will link down below. Okay, so this question says, as a minor, is there anything that I can do to invest? So one thing that you can do is if you have an adult in your life, you can open up what is called a custodial IRA, which is where the adult will go in with it with you, and then when you turn 18, you get access to all of that money. But it is the same thing as a normal IRA. It'll start accruing interest now, and it is a tax-advantaged account. In my opinion, that is one of the best ways for minors to start investing and to really take advantage of time and compound interest. Also, I think that it is so cool that as a minor you are already thinking about these things. That is awesome. I wish that I would have known about this and started investing when I was younger as well. Okay, so someone asked, how do you set up a YNAB account? So I have gone over exactly how to set up a budget inside of YNAB, but I will leave a link down below to YNAB. All you have to do is sign in with an email, create a password. They don't take any credit card information for your free trial, and if you use my link when you sign up, you'll get an extra month for free. It is really easy to create an account, and then I will link the video up here that walks you through step by step how exactly to set up your budget inside of YNAB. So this person said, what do you think about stocks? So I don't inherently think stocks are a bad or good thing. I think investing is awesome, but there are ways that you want to go about investing to make sure that you are covered, you're prepared, and you're taking advantage of all of the tax advantages that are available to you. So generally speaking, if you are not already maxing out your investment accounts that are tax advantaged, these are usually things like a 401k and your IRAs, then I definitely recommend that you do that before you go and invest in individual stocks outside of a retirement account. And generally speaking, inside of these accounts, I think it is best to diversify using index funds and ETFs. I will link down below M1 Finance. It is by far one of my favorite investing platforms. I have my Roth IRA through M1 Finance. They make it so easy to set up, and they have what they call expert pies, which are basically just expertly designed portfolios, and one of them is specifically for retirement. So all you have to do is just pick the approximate year that you plan on retiring and select your risk tolerance, and then it designs a portfolio specifically for you with those things in mind that is super diversified and helps to make sure that your money is secure inside of that investment account. This person asked if I take on personal finance clients. So I have this question a lot. Right now I don't, only because when I was thinking about my channel and what I wanted to do with it, I really wanted to be able to target providing as much free information to you guys as possible. I do see the benefits in having a personal one-on-one financial coach. I think that that's awesome, but the reality of it is that in order to go about that, people often have to charge a large sum of money, usually around $1,000, and I do think that there are benefits to that. I think the return on investment is often high, especially if you get a good financial coach who you feel comfortable with, who is transparent, and who can see what your values are and help you achieve those. However, that's just not the take that I want to take on my channel at this point. I would rather focus my time on creating as much free and accessible content to you guys as possible. So I have all of my resources available on my social medias, which I will link in the description box down below. Okay, so this person asked, how do you start investing? I already have a 401k, but I would like to get into stocks. So one of the best ways to get started investing outside of your 401k, in my opinion, is to open up a Roth IRA. Again, M1 Finance is a great place to do this because they make it really intuitive for you. They walk you through those steps. I will link M1 Finance down below for you guys. I will also show you here a video of me quickly going through the steps that it takes to open up an M1 Finance account. I really love them, and inside of that, you can pick whether you want to invest in individual stocks, ETFs, index funds. They have tons of options to choose from. So this question says, how do you resist the treat yourself mentality when shopping for Christmas? So to be perfectly honest with you, I don't. I try to, instead of looking at it as trying to resist that, I lean into it instead and I prepare for it. So in my budget, at all times, I have a couple of different budget categories set up so that I'm never overspending, but I'm allowing myself to have some free money to do with what I want. So I do have a larger treat yourself fund. I also plan accordingly for my Christmas fund to budget just a little bit more in case I want to get myself something, or I want to get someone else something nice, or something that maybe I hadn't planned for. I have a little bit more of a buffer there. And I just try to either stay in my categories or understand that if I'm going to overspend in one of my categories and I'm going to treat myself or treat someone else to something a little bit bigger, that money is going to have to come from somewhere else. So this is where I really enjoy zero-based budgets and why I think that they are so awesome for helping people to break the paycheck to paycheck cycle and really get a good grasp on their finances. It's because you're able to look and say, okay, if I overspend by $20 in this category and I buy myself this treat yourself little extra, then that might mean that I have to take $20 from vacation or from a technology fund, or from my wedding fund or something else, and you start to be able to make those decisions on what you want your money to do for you, because all of your money has value. This question is asking about how to get out of debt when you're a family of 3 on low income, specifically around $39,000 a year. So unfortunately, I can't give you specifics since I don't know a lot about your situation, but I can give you just some general tips that help a lot of people to get out of debt. I kind of sound like a broken record, but I really really think that zero-based budgets are where it is at when you're trying to get out of debt, because they really help you to manage your money as much as possible. I also think taking advantage of easy ways to save money is so important. So apps like GetUpside, where you can save money on gas, Fetch Rewards, Ibotta, coupons.com, all of these are really easy apps that make saving, well, easy and pretty intuitive as well, and you don't have to have a lot of extra time or effort to be able to put into saving money. So I will link all of those resources down below, including YNAB to set up a zero-based budget if you want to give that a try. I also think that it is really important for you to establish how you want to pay off your debt. So in the personal finance community, usually we look at paying off debt in two different ways. One is the debt snowball and one is the debt avalanche. To explain it just really quickly, the debt snowball usually focuses on the smallest debt first and then goes down the list from there, whereas the debt avalanche focuses on the highest interest debt first and then goes down the list from there. But with both of those, you are targeting one debt at a time while just paying the minimum payments on all of the rest of your debt. If you're trying to get out of debt as quickly as possible or you're doing it on low income, I highly recommend using the debt avalanche method. It might take you a little bit longer to pay off that first debt, but you're gonna save a lot more money over time. This person asks, what's a good amount or percentage of money to pull out of savings and invest it? So generally, I don't give you guys percentages because I really do think that it varies greatly. Some people barely are getting by with what they have, or their expenses, their absolute bare bone expenses, are more than the income that is coming in, and putting any aside to invest right now just really isn't possible. And then there are some people who are comfortable enough that they could be investing 50% more of their income. So it really just depends on your specific situation. But what I recommend that you do is sit down and write out all of your expenses. This includes things that you aren't paying for on a month-to-month basis, but that you need to save for. We often refer to these as sinking funds. So these are things like Christmas, car repairs, home repairs, technology, these things like that that aren't a month-to-month expense, but that you should be saving for on a month-to-month basis. And then from there, you can decide what is your income, what are your expenses, are there any places that you want to cut back on, and then you can realize how much money that you have left over to be able to start investing. So this is a really interesting question. This person asked, what do you do when you're budgeting with a partner who grew up wealthier than you? Honestly, everything about budgeting with a partner when you guys aren't on the same page can be really tricky and hard to navigate. The number one tip that I have for couples is to make sure that both of you sit down and have an honest conversation about what your background is with money, where you're at right now with money, how that makes you feel, whether that's your fears, concerns, what you're excited about, what you're struggling with, and come up with shared core goals and values that you want your money to work toward together. It can be really hard when you either grew up in different economic classes or you're currently in different economic classes and you are trying to find a middle ground. So I think creating those shared goals and values is so helpful, even if it's just one or two things that you guys can agree on that is important to you. So minimum payment on loans or income-based. My guess is that this is probably talking about student loans. Generally speaking, if you can afford the minimum payment versus an income-based payment, I recommend doing that, because what a lot of people don't realize with income-based repayment plans for federal student loans is that oftentimes you're not paying any of the principal balance. So really you're barely keeping your head above water, and sometimes you're actually not even paying off all the interest. So interest is just accruing and accruing and accruing, and you're not actually tackling the debt that is there. If income-based is truly all that you can afford right now, that is totally understandable. Just make sure that you know what that is going to look like and that you try to have some sort of a goal or plan to hopefully be able to increase those payments in the future. Okay guys, I got a little hot, so I'm taking the sweater off. Okay, so what are my tips for getting your spouse on board with a budget or a budget plan? Again, this one can be a really tricky one. My biggest advice for this one, other than sitting down like I talked about and talking about your values and coming up with shared goals, is to start showing a budget in a positive light. A lot of people view budgets as very restrictive. They think that if you guys go on a budget, they're never going to be able to buy anything else again that they want to. They're not going to be able to have any fun money. And I think that it's important to show them that you don't want your budget to be restrictive. You want budgeting to be freeing for you guys. You want it to be an opportunity for your money to be doing for you what you want it to do and to help you reach your goals. So make sure that you have room in there for fun money or for your spouse to just have the ability to have a chunk of money that they're spending whatever they want on it, whether it's $20 a month or $200 a month, whatever you guys can afford. Having their own money to spend on whatever they want that doesn't have to sit there and be scrutinized about in your budget, I think is really important for getting your partner on board. So how do you budget when your income is unstable? My number one recommendation for this is, of course, like I've said a million times throughout this, get on a zero-based budget. The reason that this is really helpful, especially for unstable incomes, or if you're an independent contractor or a server or a small business owner and you don't really know when you're going to get paid next or how much you're going to get paid next, zero-based budgets are only based off of the money that you currently have in your accounts right now. You're not sitting there making predictions, looking forward to the next month, trying to guess what you're going to make and budget around that. There's none of that with the zero-based budgets. Instead, you are just deciding what you need your money to do for you right now before you get paid again, no matter how much that is or when it is. It just comes down to figuring out how you need to stretch that money and what it needs to cover first. So zero-based budgets are where it's at. So I've had multiple questions about Yada, Yada is the high yield savings account that I recommend. I absolutely love it, but it is a little bit different from typical high yield savings accounts. So Yada is based on a raffle system. So instead of getting a fixed percent back on your money every month and every year, instead, for every $25 that you have in your account, you get a raffle ticket, and every single day they pull a new number. And then once you get at least 3 matches throughout the week of the numbers that they've pulled on one of your tickets, you start to earn money for interest. Now, this isn't gambling at all, because if you put $100 in there, you're never going to have less than $100. You're never gambling away any of your money. It's just about increasing the amount of money that you have in that account so that you can increase the amount of raffle tickets that you have and therefore increase the amount of money that you're winning each week. Hey. And the reason that I really like it is because honestly, it's really fun. And anything that gets people excited about saving, I think is awesome. And typically, a standard savings account is going to give you 0.05-ish % back on your money every year. A high yield savings account right now is running around 0.6, so still amazing, a lot better than a standard savings account. So if anything, at least get on some sort of a high yield savings account, because it doesn't cost you anything. They're run through online banks. They have no fees and usually no minimums, so that's awesome. But with Yada, right now their average return is 2 to 3%. So of course, this means that there are people who are earning less than that. But when it comes down to it, most high yield savings accounts, they're not there for the investment. It's not even keeping up with inflation a lot of the times. It's just there to keep your money safe and try to make you as much money as possible while it's sitting there. So that's the reason that I love Yada, is because even though it is variable, it really motivates you to want to save more. So this is a fun question. This says, where in one's budget do you recommend a very large bonus get allocated? Debt or savings? So generally speaking, for pretty much everyone, I have about 3 tiers of importance that I tell everyone to make sure that they've got covered. The first one is an emergency fund. And if you want to learn more about emergency funds, how much that you should have in them, how to build them, I will link the video up here that I did all about emergency funds so you can learn more. If you don't have an emergency fund, I think that is the #1 place that your money needs to be going, even if you have a bunch of debt. The second place is toward high interest debt. Usually this is credit card debt. And the reason that I think that you need to tackle this next is because obviously with high interest debt, you're losing a lot of money on that interest every single day. So it's important after you have your emergency fund established to start taking care of that debt. Then once your high interest debt is gone, I really think that you have a lot more wiggle room in your budget to decide what you want your money to do for you. So you can start putting more toward saving or spending or paying off your lower interest debt or investing. It is all about you, what your priorities and what your goals are. So if you have an emergency fund and you don't have any high interest debt, then I think that you need to sit down and decide what is most important to you. Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 20 years, and start taking that into account about what you want that money to do for you. This person asked, what information do you have on high yield savings accounts? Do you think a Roth IRA is better? So I think that they're both awesome, but they serve two completely different purposes. A high yield savings account, like I was talking about earlier, isn't really going to make you much money because it doesn't usually even compete with inflation. But the reason you want to keep your money in there is if you are saving for short or medium term goals. Things like a wedding fund, a down payment on a house, your emergency fund, or some of your smaller savings goals, I believe should all go into a high yield savings account. That way, if you need to access that money quickly, you have that available and it's liquid and there to turn into cash for you when you need it. However, a Roth IRA is an investment account. Specifically, this is awesome for retirement. So I don't recommend you put money inside of an investment account that you see yourself needing within less than 5 to 10 years. In my opinion, investing should be long term. So if you're putting money inside of an investment account, plan to have it in there for a very long time. So this person asked, how do I stop feeling guilty about past bad money habits? So just know that you're not alone. Tons of people feel this way, and I know what that feels like, to really struggle with feeling bad about the decisions that you've made in the past or where you are now based on those decisions. So I think it's really important that you know that being in debt or being debt-free is completely morally neutral. You are not a better human because you're out of debt. You're not a worse human because you are in debt. We are all doing the best we can with the resources and the knowledge that we've been given. So I think it is all about giving compassion to yourself, understanding that you were doing the best you could in the past, and hopefully now you have the education, you have the resources to be able to make some better decisions for yourself now and for future you. Okay guys, that is it for our Q&A today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget before you leave to make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below and push that notification bell. That way you get notified every single time that I upload, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.